Hello, economics students. Today we're going to be talking about the topic of utility. The agenda for today is, first of all, to discuss utility. What is it? Examine a concept called diminishing marginal utility. And then we're going to relate those concepts to the Super Bowl tickets from Super Bowl 52 that was right here in Minneapolis. You do have an ABA due today at 3:30. It's just a question about whether you'd like to go to the Super Bowl. And then your homework assignment is due later, but you, of course, can finish it during the school day if you'd like. And then you should be working on learning targets 1A and 1C. So let's talk about utility. It's the ability of any good or service to satisfy consumer wants. Okay, so we already know that scarcity is caused by us wanting more resources than are available. When we think about utility, um, this is very subjective. Okay, so a lot of it has to do with personal preference, how much you value or how useful an item is to you. So perhaps I would love to spend $200 to go to a Garth Brooks concert, but because I just love Garth Brooks and I love country music. But what if I didn't love Garth Brooks or love country music? Then its actual value is not going to be a whole lot to me. So keep in mind it's completely subjective, dependent on preference and the context of that moment in time. So as you know, hand sanitizer has been of great utility, so has toilet paper in this particular time. Utility is difficult to quantify, and keep in mind that the utility of a product is not equal to the price of that product. For an example, how much are you willing to pay for a cup of hot chocolate in the middle of the winter? You might go to Caribou and buy a cup of hot chocolate for $2.50, but on July 4th, you're going to want a Diet Coke instead and would maybe rather pay for ice and soda than you would for hot chocolate. Some examples. How much in dollars are the following worth to you? A pen, I don't know, maybe like $1. A really good concert. Now that's a good question because again, that is really highly preferential. I have paid, the most I've paid for a concert, I believe, is about $140, which sounds kind of extravagant, but that's just how much they cost these days. Now, my sister-in-law is selling golden doodles for $2,000 a piece right now. Some people are willing to pay that for a particular breed of a pet. Others would rather go the rescue route, depending on their personal values. Your finger, I don't think I could really put a price on that one, nor could I put a price in dollars on a human life. So again, utility is not necessarily a dollar value. So utility, again, its usefulness and satisfaction varies. My finger is pretty important to me. All 10 fingers are pretty important to me. I don't think I would ever sell a finger, but I might lose a finger at some point in time if I don't, use my chainsaw right. And by the way, I do have a chainsaw, but, and then I'd have to get used to it, but I certainly wouldn't sell my finger. So again, utility, usefulness, and satisfaction varies. Scarcity, this is just a review, we've talked about this before, it comes from society not having enough resources to satisfy all its wants. So when we talk about value, the value equals the scarcity plus the utility, or the worth. Now, in recent months, some things like face masks, wipes, antibacterial wipes, and hand sanitizer and toilet paper have been scarce, and they've been highly valuable. So they are worth more. And sometimes they do cost more in this modern day than they did before, but because of the scarcity and the utility, the importance that they have right now, they are worth more. Paradox of value, some necessities have little monetary value. Some non-necessities have high value. So here where we live, we have city water. We could put it in a bottle and try to sell it, but if we were just trying to do that right here, where we have a lot of water, the monetary value of a bottle of water isn't going to be that high. But other non-necessities might have high value, like our reputation. That's an important one. Our social status. That's a non-necessity, but we still might place high value on it. So utility, usefulness and satisfaction. Value includes both scarcity and utility, but again, they're not tied to a dollar value. So then we have the concept of marginal utility. Some of you might recall that at the beginning of the pandemic, people were like hoarding toilet paper. It's crazy. Luckily, we have not run out. But anyways, let's go back. We already know what utility is. Now let's talk about marginal utility. Getting one more of something that you want. That's your marginal utility. Or that's a margin rather. And then the marginal utility is the satisfaction or usefulness attained from one more unit of a product. So if we look at something like a package of toilet paper, well, I think at the beginning of the pandemic, people had a fairly high amount of satisfaction from getting one more. And especially if you were low on toilet paper, like I was once, and I was able to get like a little 4-pack at Target of really low quality toilet paper, I was pretty happy about that actually. So the marginal utility for me at that point was pretty high. But what happens with utility is that after a certain amount of time, you have something called diminishing marginal utility. So even when we really like something, like pizza, for example, we tend to like successive ones less and less. How fast it decreases is your diminishing marginal utility. Now, sometimes this is a sloped line, sometimes it's a straight line, and we'll be looking at examples of that at a later time. But what are some examples of things that have a marginal utility? I just listed a few here. You know what? Going from 1 egg to 2, that actually like goes up. Like it's not a diminishing marginal utility. The utility goes up because I like having 2 eggs for breakfast. But after that, 3, 4, 5, 6, I'm not going to get very much pleasure from my eggs anymore. In fact, it'll drop really quickly. I used to love boxed macaroni and cheese in college. It was basically what I lived on. And but then I got so sick of it that having one more box, like another day, another box, it was just like gross. I don't want it anymore. So that's diminishing marginal utility. Let's look at an example with the pizza. Basically, the line is downward sloping to the right. So the marginal utility from consuming additional units of a good eventually declines. The 4th piece of pizza down here, it's like, well, not satisfied at all. Now, let's be honest. I kind of like 4 pieces of pizza, but don't tell anyone, okay? All right. So this is generally what a marginal utility graph will look like. You'll see the utility and the quantity, and as you continue to have more and more of whatever it is that you're consuming, the utility of that particular resource diminishes in its value or in its utility for you. So I'm going to show you a recording of this concept.
Utility and marginal utility are. Simply put, utility is a term economists like to use to describe the satisfaction you feel after consuming a product or service, whereas marginal utility represents the increase in utility you experience after consuming one more unit of that product or service. The law of diminishing marginal utility, also called Gossen's first law as a tribute to Hermann Heinrich Gossen, simply states that as you consume more, the marginal utility usually goes down. In other words, a glass of orange juice provides a lot of satisfaction when you're thirsty. You can drink another one, but it won't provide as much satisfaction as the first. A third glass might give you additional satisfaction, but not much, whereas as of a certain point, we're in negative utility territory because let's just say you probably won't feel too well after drinking the 10th glass. Of course, there are exceptions, anything from deriving more pleasure from binge watching several episodes of a show rather than just one, to enjoying your stamp collection more as you continue adding to it, but all in all, the law of diminishing marginal utility provides a decent glimpse into how humans consume.
Okay, so that I know part of that was cut off. It's just the formatting of my screen here. I still need to do some work on that. So that basically summarized, you might have an additional resource and you might actually find that your marginal utility goes up for, maybe a second or third quantity, but then it will start to go down. So the marginal utility graphs can vary somewhat, but we know that for most things, like he did talk about some exceptions there, but for most things, eventually you'll get to a point where there's diminishing marginal utility. Okay, so this was a pretty fast lesson today. So what you need to do is go to Schoology and to read the assignment relating to the Super Bowl. And it will address things like utility, scarcity value, and diminishing marginal utility. You're going to read the article about the Super Bowl that was in Minneapolis in 2018, and then complete the assignment. You should also be working on learning targets 1A and 1C. And I just want to remind you as well that you have an ABA assignment due at 3:30 today. The homework assignment can be done later. So thank you. Hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.